All right, let's jump into things. So had FOMC overnight or this morning. Look, really sort of quick recap of things. I didn't actually get up and watch it this morning. The first time in a while, I was just like, look, it's pretty much expected. The 450 was going to be the rate, so basic, which is a hold, and that's exactly what they got. So I think it's always with these sort of things. It's so heavily telegraphed and that. Okay, there's no shock kind of thing here. I don't think they just don't have the sort of data so weak to sort of support the idea of sort of cutting at this stage. Um, the press conference is obviously generally the big mover. You generally get a bit of a move off the rate decision, algos, these kind of things. People that sort of, I assume pretty much they'll sort of take the position based on the idea there could be a shock. And then when there isn't, those positions quickly go and unwind and that. So you see a little bit of a fast move, but generally sort of bounces back to where it was and that, and then you sort of see the press conference come out, and that'll give you a bit more of a sort of an idea, sort of moving forward, what to look for. And just a quick look around the headlines of that. Look, it basically sort of seems that Powell and the Fed are not in any sort of super rush to sell, to drop rates. So with that, it's basically just like a little lifeline for USD at the moment and DXY. Is it enough to sort of get it to break out? Well, obviously at this point, no, it hasn't been. But I'll get to the chart in a second so we can sort of ascertain. Pretty much, it's still just that 100.40 level that it needs to sort of overcome, and it has been an incredibly sort of frustrating period to be trading with this thing down here. Typically, more unless I'm sort of short US dollar, particularly since Trump was sort of saying that, look, he wants a weaker dollar. I'm like, look, that's going to be the way of it. And in hindsight, I should have just stuck to that mentality the whole way through. But of course, then I've got into this idea of USD running off the lows and that, and really sort of steamrolling a lot of people. And I've tried to present, and one of my sort of weak points is timing. Levels, that's fine. Timing is what is difficult with it all, and it has been a big sort of heartbreak and heartache, sort of trying to trade this stuff sort of down here. Anyway, I'll get to the charts in a moment. Through rest of Asia, no data coming out. We've got sort of French bank holiday. We've got BOE tonight as well. So they're looking to cut rates and that. This could give a little bit of a push to DXY, but generally I tend to find that BOE doesn't really impact the US dollar, sorry, DXY a great deal. So you might get a bit of a sort of movement off this. But again, if they come in at this level that they're already sort of predicting, then there's no real sort of super shock with it all. Coming up tonight, employment claims still, relatively low. I think I said a couple of this last week. I mean, it's been within 5 or 10,000 for a little bit. Last week sort of spiked up 20,000. But I think I was sort of like, till you get above that sort of, 350, 400 level, then these apparently are acceptable levels with it all. So not really my forte, but that's kind of what I've heard that you're sort of looking for with these sort of things. Moving through, you got a bit of lower tier data coming out there, so looking like a little bit of a tick up in costs here, which obviously is more sort of inflationary sort of stuff. Yeah, not really something that I sort of typically consumer inflation when businesses pay more for labor, high costs here, pass on the consumer. Yeah, so it's basically just up the line kind of costs and that, so labor costs with it all. So obviously, if that's so it's costing them a little bit more as one of the inputs, then that could then down the track sort of lead to more inflation. Obviously, they'd have to sell things for higher prices. All right, cool. So newswide, BOE is about the big thing over there. Apart from that, I don't think we have anything sort of massively of note coming through the session. So onto the charts. And so we have DXY. And you can see through this movement here. So where we have, I think 4 o'clock. Was it 4 o'clock or 5? 5 o'clock, I'm pretty sure. 4 o'clock it was. So 4 o'clock candle is this one just here. Boom. So come out, they held rates and bang, they dropped down. So, I mean, as expected kind of thing. 4:30 is where you have the press conference, which is this candle here. And as you can see, with a bit of more of a bullish tone, obviously market said, hey, look, that's not too bad. So really, if you step back and have a look at it, it's let's get into a higher time frame. It's just thrown it a little bit of a lifeline. Jesus, let's get this out of here. Well, and as I say, it's being sold into a little bit here. Has thrown it a little bit of a lifeline just to sort of save it from this kind of movement down here. We have seen a slight progression of buyers up through this level here, but again, these internal structures, this is what's been so infuriating with it. You're like, here that go the buyers, crash back down. No, here go the buyers, crash back down and crash lower and lower. And it has just been an absolute sort of nightmare to try and sort of trade this thing because when they get onto it, you can see that sort of like this period through here, called with the USD fanboys and that, and they were like just buying it at all costs, all costs, all costs, got up into this resistance level where we know the sellers have been sitting previously, where we know just above, not necessarily that you'd have stops there, but this is the level that I've been calling for a sort of a bit more of a sort of confirmed breakout, right up into it and crash down and try. NFP was stronger, sold into, well, sold into on NFP, came up afterwards, sold into Monday, sold into Tuesday. And as you can see, it sort of pushed up a little bit into close overnight. But come start of the session now, we are sort of selling down. And as you can see, it's actually sort of starting to form a decent-ish enough little sort of channel through here, albeit sort of pulling back. So what we can still do with this is look at sort of like, should this thing turn around and flip, it could be quite significant because you can see that, as it is at the moment, sellers are here. Sellers have moved down, sellers have moved down, sellers tried to let it, so buyers tried to get it through here, but couldn't quite do it. Sellers stepped in again and pushed it back down. So we know that this is pretty much a downward channel here. So if we drag this across here, we've got a bit of a horizontal, which we can see has had a pretty decent little reaction each time with it all unable to close above here when it was coming back through. And this is Monday morning. Tuesday morning. So sold down Monday, fired up, bit of an early sort of push, and then obviously bang, sold into again. So, a lower level, this is your major breakout, 140 above there. Underneath that, sort of important, significant-ish levels will be this 99.9, and then sort of we've got 100.5. So market's just moving around a little bit here. Back in 1 second. All right, did a little bit of searching around. When these things just move sporadically like this, have a look at Aussie, put it on a low time frame, just comes out of nowhere, just shoots up, what's the sort of 10 points or something. Gold's just taking a little bit of a smack here as well. When you see these fast moves, no news sort of set up for it all, you know something's just happened. So flick on, and of course, here we go. Trump, big news conference tomorrow, 10 a.m. Major trade deals with big and highly respected country. Who's this? Maybe Japan? Could be. Not quite sure. But the point is, it's sort of like you can see, all it takes is a little headline just like this, and market will sort of shoot around with stuff. So if we look, there goes gold. Gold just drops 85 down to 77. I mean, it's not going to sort of, change the course of everything, but, it's coming in at a significant time because structurally, here's your drive up, here's your second drive, taking out lows. Now we're looking for a move, potentially sort of move back down a little bit lower here. So let me just tighten up some stops on positions that I've got and see if this is actually going to hold or not. All right, let's keep pushing on with the charts. So where we go, DXY, and see perfect example. DXY, bang, US dollar, and this is what I'm saying. So you got to sort of look at what's driving things. What is the market like at the moment? Well, US dollar, apart from some weakish economic data, has been really being sold off. Look at this thing bounce back here. Look at this move here. Just on that sort of headline that tomorrow they're going to have a sort of a meeting. If that's a good positive announcement, we should see some continuation of these moves. And this is the thing, it's sort of, you pay attention to these little headlines. It won't necessarily change the course of everything, but it's certainly moving the market a little bit as we sort of, as we look at this sort of stuff. So let me just, back 2 seconds. All right, so where were we? Yeah, so as you can see, sort of, you know, we can see the sellers are moving down. It's consolidating against resistance here. A little bit of a sell down, and then, hey, perfectly timed headline, and, it keeps it in the game. So it's sort of pushed up here a little bit more. Take out the wick from last night. Over here, you're coming up into this 100 and 106 kind of level. This is significant because this is actually the weekly flip level. So if we have a look at this on a weekly time frame, you can see that this just above sort of 114 will flip this candle bullish, and you can see that if this gets up above that 104, well, there's market flying all over the shop at the moment. Gold, what do we do? Dropped 85 down to 77, now back up to 91. This is insane, is that a price action? Certainly. So with DXY here, so look, you can see that if this does manage to somehow flip, we could expect a little bit of a sort of carry through. As I said, look, you've got this lower wick at 101.30. So back to this, and on with things like that. Geez, this, after these conditions are near impossible to actually trade through because we're getting these headlines out of nowhere. There's no set time for it. It's always mysterious. It's like, oh, let's have a look. I mean, what was it? Big news tomorrow with a country that's highly respected. Like, you know what I mean? Just, hey, we got a deal to announce with these people, but it's got to, like, it's almost like a drama show. You got to build the anticipation, and oh, who could it be? Oh, this kind of sort of stuff. Aussie's taken off. I think that jumped about 20 points just on that move. Gold had that initial spike down, but then it just reverted right back up, and really sort of popped in. Let's get onto that time frame here. Put in a big sort of jam back up to these resistance levels. So it's really, really tough to sort of to be able to sort of trade these things at the moment, and even just the reaction of these sort of things. So what I was sort of saying before is what's been driving these things, and obviously, so the uncertainty, the trade deal, this kind of sort of stuff is what's been sort of big sort of pusher of gold to be moving up. I mean, that was the big drive over here, but more recently it was those sort of probably the Asia issue with all those sort of currencies just smashing the US dollar. But again, we heard a little bit of reprieve, and obviously, bang, market sort of got rid of gold here. So look, it is just sort of consolidating on this sort of pullback. If we sort of say, hey, look, here's the initial drive up, here's the pullback, and we've got to see what happens here. So structurally, I know I sort of flew on from DXY, but pretty much know 140, that's the level you got to see for the breakout. Onto gold, where we are at the moment, although this is a very scrappy chart, clean up with these ones here, it's the same structure that I always sort of talk about, in the sense of, you've got the three parts. You've got your drive up, you've got your pullback, this is the third leg. This is where we're at the moment. And this is a very vital leg. This leg will always come. Admittedly, I thought we would have got a little bit down to 61%, and then we would have seen this move up like this. But you can see that sort of obviously buyers stepped in a little bit earlier. This smaller little consolidation zone, I thought structurally we may have got a retest of these highs, but they did come in. So we're in quite a vital leg here because this is the leg that's going to determine us, are we going through 3,500 higher high? Are we going to do a double top? In which case we could be looking at like, maybe a sort of $300 range through the highs over here, or is it going to come in at a lower high? And I think this is why sort of the sell down the other day on a little bit of sort of a little bit of sort of some tariff talk and that is quite vital because that was quite a sharp little sell-off we saw. Was this just yesterday? Yep. So drove up very hard into it, sold down. So now we've got to sort of see, is this the top? Because if this starts to fail and starts to move back down towards these previous lows over here, then you're looking at the same structure in the opposite direction. You've got your resistance, you look for your support. Is this going to be a double bottom? In which case, then that could be the range. Or is this going to break through the bottom, and then now we're actually sort of confirming a lower high with a lower low, which means you'd be looking at potentially, not albeit a super deep one, but something to this sort of effect with a larger sort of pullback channel. So I think it's for gold at the moment, it's in a very vital sort of stage because that's the largest sort of structure of gold. And then if you have a look down internally of this move itself, the same sort of price pattern does repeat, but we're in this sort of next leg up here. So you've got your drive up, we found resistance. This is the pullback. If it can't get above this zone here, and this is the high, it makes it this, which doesn't mean that you're necessarily coming back to the lows here, but you can see how structurally this would be your sort of setup with it all, and then potentially looking at a deeper correction. So get onto this other chart here. If we look at this where we're at the moment, it is really just sort of in a little sort of range through here. So put a little breakout box on this, and I'd say this is probably going to give us our directions. Breakout box. So a break above, call it 3,400 because it's a round number, and you do have a little bit of wicks up over here. Above 3,400, you're probably going to look to test those 34, 37, and then potentially if you break that, then it's on with the go. Because again, resistance, support, you've got to see some attempt to sort of come up to these highs. And this is what I'm saying, it could just come to this high and break down here. Though if we do break through this level here, we're probably going to be looking more up towards these highs for a continuation move. And this is where we're going to see, is this whole move here going to be, a double top, or are we going to move through? So I think sort of certainly it's crucial at 3,400. So above 3,400, you're looking at 34, 37. And then above 34, 37, well, you're probably looking to go back up and test 3,500 for the highs. If you do break through the lows down over here, there's a couple of levels of support, but it was a pretty quick shot up through here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a sort of move back down. 33.50, and then around 33.10, I think are the levels that I'd be kind of looking for. So I think at the moment it's just in a little bit of a box. Obviously it's attempting, that Asia kind of buying came in very strong here again, as we saw. Even with that little bit of tariff news coming out, that only lasted a split second. As you can see here, this little sort of move down. This is where the tariffs start, well, the deal, whatever is announced. 86 down to 77, drops 10 bucks. 2 seconds later, buys up 30 bucks or 20 bucks. So yeah, it's really just the same sort of thing at the moment. It's Asia session, buying gold like crazy, no structural things. The reason that this has been so difficult to trade recently is because structurally these things are not really playing out. Like you try to sort of go, okay, here's a negative divergence, here's these sort of moves and all this kind of stuff. But when people are buying things, and this is the same sort of thing with like a capitulation move, when people are buying things, just not you look like they're not looking at the charts, they're just okay, you buy it, they drop down a bit, you buy it. You know what I mean? It's like when sort of people are just panicked selling. They're not looking at the chart and going, okay, I'll sell down to this point. They're just get me out, get me out, get me out, sell, sell, sell. And when you see those moves, no technical analysis can really work with it all. When you pull back into these kind of levels here, we can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, we can see that the sellers are sitting at this end here. We know that the buyers are sitting down over here. So once we see a relinquish of one of those sides, absence of sellers, absence of buyers, that's when we'll see our direction. And that's when we sort of go, okay, well, where are our targets? Where's the next level of buyers? Well, we got a little bit of buyers here at 30.50. So it's not much of a drop down here, about 15 bucks or so. But I would say more under here, 30.50 down to 30.10, 33.50, 33.10, or above 34 up there. You could sort of try and get this little bit here, but there's also the chance that then you get this move and it pushes back up like this, because as we know with gold, it likes just generally when it's consolidated, it's going to do a quick fake one way and then drive the other way. Fake down, move up, fake up, move down. So I think sort of like, realistically above 34 with a close, below 33.50, and look down at 33.10 would be the move for me. But at the moment, it's just, you know, you want to trade the range where you sell the top, you buy the bottom. That's about it. But eventually, obviously, that's going to sort of pop. So you just got to keep an eye on what's happening with DXY. Is that going to be enough to spur them on a little bit? At the moment, look, it is finding some little sense of buyers up around this little in this little consolidation zone, up against resistance. So to me, it's sort of like, where they've just been selling it like all crazy last couple of weeks. They seem to be holding it here at the moment, and I think that's important to sort of try and sort of pick out where that sort of swing in price action is. Because if we are going back to DXY very quickly here, if you look at this sell down here, so this is Tuesday, Tuesday morning, opened up and flew up through here. It could not catch or hold anything. Rallied up, bang, sold in. Rally up, bang, sold into. Rally up, bang, sold into. This little push up off open looked like they wanted to go. Went into a resistance and then smashed, as you can see. Came down to the 216 retracement of that little move. They were just selling it at absolute all costs. So the fact that now we've sort of moved up and it's kind of holding a little bit around here shows that there is some interest on it all. But unless you can get that continuation move, and you want to see buyers actually go, yeah, okay, let's do this, push and test these breakout levels, you're just going to see it dribble back down, and it's just on with the garbage show that we've been seeing, which is basically just sideways. But the fact that it's sort of consolidating around these resistance levels means I feel looks like it may want to give it a push to come up here. And we've got some pretty important levels to get through. Yeah, and then the main one. Yeah. All right. So it's gold. Flip along to silver. Silver I sort of stayed a little bit clear of the other day, and this is why. I mean, look, I missed this big rocket move up like this. That's fine, but this is the thing. It's just really just in this big chop zone here. Like it's a bit hard. If we can drag this up. I mean, this is kind of really just going anywhere. I would put the zone through here. So this looks a little bit sort of fake out to me over here at 33. Still, that's kind of the thing that I'm looking for. To me, it's a bit of it's a tough trade at the moment. Like everything, everything's just very choppy. I mean, look, I'm an in-out trader, so that's fine to a certain extent. But it is nice to sort of sometimes put some runners on and hope that well, not hope because I don't deal on hope, but look for continuations and look for something that okay, I've got a runner, and not just have that blown out of the water. Because nobody's winning through this. If you're buying it, well, bang, you stopped out. You stopped out. If you're trying to short it, well, you're getting ripped out, and then you may come back in later. So it's a very tough conditions with the market at the moment. Aussie got a smack down over here. I actually caught some decent shorts overnight on this one. What time frame can we see this 3 drive on? So this is what I was kind of looking at, this move. Let's get this out of here. This sort of 3 drive up over here is what I was kind of looking at. I would have liked this support here to act as more of a resistance because this is in line with those previous highs. So it's kind of technically back into that little part of a range, but as you can see, so it was drifting up a little bit, and then even on that like little bit of snifter of a headline, it just took off what, 30 up to 50, so 20 points up through there. Though all it's done is undone this sort of body fill candle. So if you have a look across here, pretty much undid this big drop down candle, and that was from just after the press conference. So I got out at 22, and I've sort of layered some shorts going in this morning. I would have liked this to have held, but it does seem like it's finding a little bit of resistance here. As I said, the fact that DXY is sort of consolidating around that resistance level is what I'm sort of basing this on. Certainly, sort of if we get down underneath these lows here, underneath sort of 64.20, that's going to look like a pretty good sort of failed breakout on a higher time frame. So you can see the 3 drive here, where we've got a straight flat line. We've moved up, 1 drive, 2 drive, 3 drive. Now broken down, want to see this as a retest and then take out the low here. That's the trade I'm looking for. And the bigger implications of this is that this was its attempt to get out. Whoops. To get out of this resistance, this big sort of like consolidation zone here. So it was really attempting hard to sort of get out, 3 drive out to the top side, unable to do it, and now sort of pushing back down underneath 64.20. I think is going to be a decent move back down into this range. And realistically, what you can be doing then is sort of you can be targeting the lows, the supports of that range, which is kind of really a bit more of this, because that's what was respected through the range. I did put this breakout box here because we do have a level of support down over here. But as you can see, a failed attempt to break out can very much lead to potential big breakdowns. Certainly back into the range and find support. So should we break down through here, through 64.20, I'll be sort of looking at these levels here. And a little alert on this one here. So this is back test and low, failed breakout, back into range. And we'll see how this one plays out. I mean, look, this could just fire back up into here. It kind of depends a little bit who the announcement is with. I don't think it's going to be China. Japan is probably what my bet is. Yeah, but again, it's this little game of like, ooh, who's it going to be? That's not trading. You know what I mean? That's kind of like I'll take numbers 4, 7, and 12 and see if your lotto numbers come up. Like it's not trading. Anyway, so what we can do is work off what we've got on the charts, which is, as I said, the structure here, 3 drive out to the top side, failed, it's broken back down into the range. I want to see this low get taken out here. If you do continue back up through here, I'll probably just cut the positions because it kind of means that it's tried to fail and it's going to thing, and we could just be looking at, maybe a revisit of this little level through here that we were dealing with. But certainly it looks structurally 3 drive, break back in, retest. You just need that lower low to confirm underneath 20. All right, move along. We've got copper. Finally kind of broke, but very uneventful. Like I caught this short down here, which was great. I tried to sort of get it through here. I got chopped out a couple of times and then gave up on it. And of course, that's when they move. That's when you're burnt out. Well, burnt out. When you sort of get to the point, you're just like, nah, screw that. Nah, I'm done. I'm going to look elsewhere. That's when they kind of break. And as you can see, it was a bit of a sort of channel coming up over here. I think it was around this day here that I was like, okay, yep, we've got this one sorted. It came down. I was like, that's cool. Move the stops. And then bang, I got blown out. But what I was saying is that this structural level here, is what sort of I was remarking at this point here where we did sell down. I said, look, we're starting to pull away from the channel into a wedge, which we kind of were. I was surprised that it didn't come up and retest this level here. And of course, when it did come back up there, that's when I got chopped out. So the move has eventually started to sort of play out here a little bit. I was looking for this breakdown underneath these wicks. Obviously, it came down, tested it, didn't get it, and then bang, I got blown out. So that's life. So where we're at the moment is in that third drive down, or not third drive, but third leg. Support, resistance. This is the important leg. Are we going to get double bottom, lower low, higher low, and that's it? And this is why I think sort of, again, it's important to sort of look at what US dollar is going to do here. If we get a breakout on US dollar, I'm looking for minimum back down to 455. If it continues to break and move higher, I think that'll give us the catalyst to get the breakdown a lower towards sort of like 430. Cool. And USD China. This, again, a little bit of a top trade here. We are actually technically testing the underside of this sort of somewhat sort of falling support that it had. The bigger sort of more crucial thing is this breakdown underneath this range here. I put this negative divergence. It was only on a 1 hour, but as you can see with this level higher time frame one here, this is on 4 hour. If you look at these lows and these lows, not a perfect negative divergence, no, because it didn't technically make a lower low, but look at what the buying pressure did. Oops, get rid of that. There is nowhere near any sort of buying pressure to bring this thing back down here to sort of say that it was going for another low. They were just buying this thing, they were absorbing it all. And as you can see, breaks and moves back up in here. So I'm surprised to see Aussie actually moving up while this thing is also sort of moving up, because obviously this is USD yuan. So we are seeing yuan a little bit weaker with this level here. And really, we're in fake breakout territory. So what I sort of called the other day is obviously we got this sort of 5-month range here. We had a bit of a fake breakout to the top side. Could just be a counterbalance to this move over here. If it is and breaks back up in here, then just really we're going to be playing around in this range just up over here for a little while longer. Not direct, because no correlations are perfect, but as this moves up, technically it should be putting a little bit of pressure on Aussie and also putting a little bit of pressure on gold. But at the moment, as you can see, it's trying to work its way back in there, but 99% of the time it's a grind. It's just this kind of move here. And then, of course, we had that sort of Chinese holiday for 4 days, and they just absolutely went to town on it. So it's just undoing that move a little bit here. But yeah, a continued move up through here should make things a little bit more difficult for those other two assets. All right, that's it for me.